Yeah, Bill Bonfluff, Penn State. So Glenn, when I bought my new house 25 years ago, it was fully carpeted, and the first thing we did was rip out all the carpets because it had hardwood floors. And that's often seen as being a way of improving air quality because carpets are notorious particulate sinks. In fact, they used air blown through dirty carpets to determine the olfactory load from buildings. But you're saying it's a gas sink that might be useful. So how do we reconcile those two points of view?
Sure. I mean, I guess the carpet has to be clean to begin with, obviously, and in order for it to absorb anything. But you're right. I mean, over time, it's going to accumulate detritus debris that does have its own, the microbial activity generating VOCs, and so it's not a panacea. So the question is how can this work in a real environment in the best way? And maybe it isn't carpet, maybe it's ceiling tiles.
Sure, you're just giving examples. In a similar vein, where do I have to store my clothes so that when I put them on clean, they're not already contaminated?
Oh, yes, there's an easy answer, outside.
Outside, that was going to be my solution.
Okay, so we have a question through Twitter. This question is for Dr. Shiriewa. How long do the crusts last? Do the surface crusts regenerate, as Dr. Corsi mentioned this morning?
How long what?
The crust.
The crusts last.
Surface crust.
Yes.
Oh. So for this, I think this person is talking about this film in indoor films.
Okay.
Surface crust formation.
Okay. They haven't mentioned that.
Yes.
Okay, but once it's generated, as long as you don't clean it, it should be there for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. They haven't added any further clarification, so we're going to leave it at that unless they want to write in again.
Can I just jump in? I think that they were asking about regeneration, and that the crust doesn't prevent completely the ozone from penetrating.
Yes,
It
ozone can
just
still
slows
penetrate.
it down.
Yes, it slows down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a comment or question on Cora's presentation. You talked about the stoves and how the electric stove did not give off emissions. And of course, since most electricity is generated through fossil fuels, you're changing the place where the combustion happens. So did you take into account, the shift in air pollution?
Sure, I guess it just depends on where. Well, and not all. In Ontario, we call electricity hydro, like that's you pay your hydro bill. Yeah, so not all electricity is generated by combustion, first of all. But yes, that is a concern. Having point sources versus many non-point sources is something to think about, but it really depends on where you're most concerned about the emissions and where it's easiest to remediate them.
Perfect. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect, thanks, Annette.
So I have a question for Dr. Morrison. This is Annette Olson, AAAS. And actually maybe also for Dr. Corsi. You talked about the meth labs, not meth labs, but the houses that were contaminated
That
with
it was in the right direction, yes.
Yeah. So how did that work start, get involved? Were there people who called y'all, I'm from Texas, sorry, called y'all up to say, we have this question, and what is the role in this potentially for forensics?
Sure. We actually were contacted originally by NIST, who were interested in this work and wanted to support some chemistry studies on methamphetamine. And I don't recall more than that, other than that it was that interest, and we defined the research questions that we thought were most important in this, and which was, what is the form of methamphetamine? How is it remediated? How does it transport through building materials? Dustin Popendick was very involved in that work. And so in terms of building forensics, certainly if you're considering, forensics generally applies to law enforcement. And that means that if you're looking for whether methamphetamine is available, then you could, some of the work we've done actually speaks to that. What we did learn in that realm was that you can often have very clean surfaces, which is their standard, right? Generally the standard, you look for the amount of surface contamination, and not find anything, but still have a contaminated building because the methamphetamine penetrates beyond the surface into the building materials, into the drywall behind. So in terms of your specific question, it's relevant because forensics don't always catch what's there and tell you, whether or not the building's remediated.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, that ends us right at 7 minutes. It's perfect. Thank you all for coming up and for being a part of this great talk. I really look forward to what else you do with your studies. Thank you.